Dear friends, it's great to be taking part, even through video, in this high-level conference on internet freedom. One principle: in a democratic society, it is the citizens who are supposed to be observing and judging the thoughts and the actions of the governments on a daily basis, not the governments who are supposed to be observing, judging, spying upon the thoughts or the actions of their citizens. If you end up going to the second instead of the first, you have turned around on its head the principle of any vibrant democracy, any civilized democracy. You have turned around on their heads human rights. One fact: the internet today is the means through which increasingly we exercise a number of other fundamental rights. The freedom of expression, the freedom of association, getting organized, the right to education, even commerce. In that sense, the internet itself and access to it could be said to be a new fundamental right. We need the internet. A danger. The danger is that in the same way and at the same time that the internet increases our ability to exercise a number of fundamental rights, it also opens the door, opens the space for their violation. Every government in the world, every police, every company, even criminals, want to have as much access to private information as they can for their own purposes. And the internet indeed opens that door. And when you're talking about repressive governments, then observing what I say, trying to silence me, even arresting me and throwing me in jail for what I say or do on the internet, is something that we see increasingly happening. Now, given the principle, given the fact, given the danger, what is the solution? In my view, the only way to deal with this problem and this promise is to deal with cyberspace exactly as we would with our regular space. Make sure that we apply in the internet the same laws, the same safeguards on the freedoms that we have that we apply outside of it. Let me give you an example. If a post office were to open up every letter that we send, we probably would think that that is a tremendous violation of our rights. If it were to read every letter that we send to see if we are possibly a terrorist, or if we are possibly someone who wants democracy in a country that doesn't have it, then we would say basta. The fact of the matter is, in the internet world, it is very, very easy, without anyone knowing, for anyone to open up that private information. Should we allow it? Of course not. Can there be exceptions? Yes. The same ones that exist in our real life. So, for example, there may be legitimate reasons for which a government may survey some people on the internet. But there's got to be a law on that. There's got to be a legitimate purpose to do so. Any measures taken have to be necessary and proportionate, and the decision cannot be made by the governments themselves. The decisions have to be made by independent authorities, judicial authorities or other authorities. If you do not have these guarantees, you are in major trouble. Well, some governments will come and tell you, what's the big deal? Are you a terrorist? Are you a criminal? No, I will answer. Well then, why are you complaining? If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. My answer to that is, if you have nothing to hide, you probably don't have a life. Get a life. We all have something to hide, something absolutely legitimate to hide, whether it is our political beliefs or our credit card numbers. It is a red herring argument to claim that you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, and we have to fight against it. This is precisely what the EU is doing. The EU has committed itself to promote freedom of expression and freedom of the internet around the world through its policies. Let me give you some examples. In the new strategic framework for human rights that was adopted last June by the 27 member states of the EU, it is underlined that the EU will promote in every way it can freedom of expression, including on the internet, around the world. The EU, in that same document, also commits itself to ensure that it will make impact assessments on the rights of expression and internet in policies that it takes around the world, whether it's for cybersecurity or whether it's for cybercrime or whether it's for internet governance. In other words, we commit ourselves to make sure that the policies that we adopt are policies that will be consistent with our principle to promote internet freedom and not to limit it around the world. Second thing that we do, of course, is that we constantly monitor and condemn openly restrictions on the internet, especially when they take place against bloggers, activists, journalists, and others around the world in order to silence them and to silence their free expression or their free association. A third thing that we do is that we have imposed sanctions in the case of Iran and Syria against exporting materials that can be used to survey citizens. And we're considering, as we speak, the potentiality of increasing those sanctions in other cases. The fourth thing that we do is that we have established a very sophisticated, a very complicated process we call the no disconnect strategy, in which the European Commission, in cooperation with the EAS, in which Cathy Ashton, who is the High Representative for Foreign Policy in the EU and the Vice President of the Commission, and Neelie Kroes, who is the responsible Commissioner, provide the tools in non-democratic situations for people to be able to circumvent cutoffs of the internet, to be able to prevent themselves from being followed or spied upon, to do everything possible in order to create an open environment where governments, some governments, are trying to create a closed one. A fifth thing that we do is that we support civil society in these arrangements through very specific funding, through the European Instrument for Democracy and Human Rights, as we call it. We don't just simply stay in words, we also apply those issues in deed. A sixth thing that we do is that we place emphasis on corporate social responsibility. Corporations around the world today, as every one of you in this room knows, increasingly do things that can affect human rights, whether positively or negatively. In the EU, we have 3 pilot programs now to apply corporate social responsibility. One of the 3 has to do with the IT business and IT companies. Dear friends, these efforts, these EU policies, these EU commitments mean very little unless they're done in cooperation with others around the world who care. The United States does, and I am particularly pleased to be able to be sending this message in what is probably, Mike, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming one of your last appearances in this position. Mike Posner has been a true advocate and fighter for an open internet, for a multi-stakeholder approach, for precisely the things that we at the EU as well do. And we have been cooperating very closely together. It's very important for us to be able to preserve that openness, that multi-stakeholder nature of the internet around the world, and to do so in multilateral fora, as we did during the 3rd Committee in New York this past December, and to keep up the good fight. Thank you so much for organizing this. I'm very sorry I cannot be with you, but I assure you that we will be in close cooperation in the future, as we have in the past, for the principles that we so believe in, principles that are not Western, principles that are not strange, principles that we apply on our daily lives, and we certainly should equally apply on the internet. Thank you.